So to like have your organization's name in a book that is talking about short-term missions in a critical way, that's not a good look.
Exploring the landscape of modern missions. This is Field Notes, a podcast by Mission Discovery.
Hey everybody, this is my good bud Michael Neff over here. So one thing you need to know about Michael Neff is if Michael Neff ever recommends a restaurant to you, say no, because it's probably outside of your budget. This man is a bougie eater. These are my standards. Michael Neff's way up here.
Okay, I just want to say you were going to London, and London has some great food, and I suggested a very nice, but not like crazy nice.
I'm talking $70 for 2 people.
Yeah. See, I think when other people watch this, they're going to be on my side, and they're going to say that's kind of a normal amount of money to spend on food.
I think the people who maybe are in your age bracket, old enough to be my parent, but people who are in my age bracket of 23, just out of college, we're more like the McDonald's dollar menu experience.
Okay. Hailey, when I was your age, I enjoyed good food. So I'm just saying.
Okay, well.
No, Dishoom, if you're ever in London, Dishoom is hands down the best Indian place that you can find.
To be fair, when I went, a man dropped a drink in the lap of my friend and paid for our meal anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you told me the story, you were like, it was so expensive, but then you didn't actually pay anything for your meal. So,
but if I had to pay,
you're welcome.
Other things you need to know about Michael Neff that's a little bit more relevant to this situation is that Michael Neff has been working with an organization called Mission Discovery for over 20 years. This man is an expert in short-term missions.
I don't know if anybody's ever an expert on anything, but yeah, I went on my first short-term mission when I was 13 years old, which was a long time ago. Since then, haven't stopped. I've basically been on a mission trip every year since I was 13. And then we came on with Mission Discovery 20 years ago. Right here beside me, going through this journey with me is Hailey Hofstetter, right? You have 2 last names. Sometimes you go by your other last name.
Yeah, Watson. Yeah.
Hailey Watson. But Hofstetter, that's the one we're using today?
Yeah.
Okay. Hailey has been with Mission Discovery for over a year, almost a year.
About a year and a half.
Okay, yeah. It feels like forever.
I don't know if I should take that as an insult.
But in a good way. It just, you came in so seamlessly. You've just been such a great part of our team. You're going to be transitioning into a project coordinator role next year.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, so Michael and I keep using these words like project coordinator, short-term mission trips, mission discovery. And so to pull it all together for you guys, we work for a short-term missions organization called Mission Discovery. So Michael, can you first of all just tell us like what is a short-term mission?
Short-term mission generally is a 7 to 10 day trip where a church or a group will go somewhere. They'll go out, connect with some sort of work or ministry that's happening and serve alongside them. With Mission Discovery, I think we specialize in connecting groups with ongoing ministries that are really doing good work.
So it sounds like short-term missions are a pretty great thing. You would think. But I gotta be real honest here. In recent years, short-term missions have been a little bit of a controversial conversation. You know what I'm saying, Michael?
Yes, they have. They have been a little bit of a controversy. Really, short-term missions, you can probably go even farther back, but in the 1990s, that's when churches really started kind of coming on to this idea of short-term missions as something that like a youth group could do or like a small group from the church. And coincidentally, that's when Mission Discovery began. We began in 1992, I think, 91, 92. You know, with short-term missions, the goal is never to like do something and then leave it high and dry. And that's one of the arguments against short-term missions, right? Is that you go somewhere and you don't have enough time to really establish something or get something going. And so that was the criticism, was like, oh, churches are just kind of like popping in and popping out, and there's no follow through. There's no consistency. They're just really like painting the same building over and over again. That's a common example that's used. And so there was kind of like this time in which short-term missions got really popular. And then people started looking at like, well, how effective are they? What's actually being done?
So you're talking about all these things that people are out here saying about short-term missions. But we got to be real with you guys. It's not just short-term missions people are coming after, because we personally have been accused of some of these things. So Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about the heat that we got for what we do here at Mission Discovery?
So we were name checked in a book that was very critical of short-term missions. And to like have your organization's name in a book that is talking about short-term missions in a critical way, that's not a good look. And yet when you like read how we were actually referenced, it was really just the author did a Google search for short-term missions, and we were one of the first ones to pop up.
Because Nathan is great at this beauty marketing and SEO, and he does his job well.
Yeah, we had done really good with our SEO. So our name was in the book, but it was just, he had Googled short-term missions and our name had popped up. And we have a tagline, which I love, to love is to serve. But he was referencing it as just this like sales pitch. The whole chapter is kind of about how there are so many options for short-term missions. And these organizations are all trying to use some sort of angle to get people to come, right? Because you do have to use that. And ultimately, his point was there's got to be more to it than that. The funny thing is, I believe that Mission Discovery and I think most organizations that are doing this responsibly would argue, we do put a lot of thought into where we go, who we work with. And so to just have our name thrown into this book that's like short-term missions is bad was like, wait a second, you don't know anything about us. You just Googled us.
And thankfully, there was some follow-up on that situation.
Yes. Our president at the time, Maury Buchanan, knew the author and he called the author and was like, hey, yeah, you put us in your book.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And so he apologized. And the author actually, he did say some nice things about us. And we put that on our website.
Yeah, he left us a stellar review after that. So if you're really curious and you really want the tea on this situation, go dig around our website a little bit. You'll find his review. You'll figure out what book it is.
Yeah.
We're not going to name drop.
But ultimately, like he wasn't saying like Mission Discovery is doing bad things. He just kind of like Google missions and we popped up. So yes, we were in the book, but I would argue under false pretenses.
And honestly, we've chosen forgiveness. That's what Jesus would want. There's not really any actual tea in this situation. We're all friends now here. But we do think that there is some merit to the fact that there are people out there who are doing things in the name of God. They're doing missions in the name of God, and they are kind of making a little bit of a mess of things. And so we want to acknowledge that and say that there is some truth to that.
I would say that there is always room to improve, right? We are always constantly looking at how we're doing things and what works and what doesn't. And we're always checking in with our ministry partners. I think one of the big things about what we do is we're not trying to go in and establish something. We're not trying to go in and kind of force something that we haven't tested out. We're basing all of what we do and the work that we do off of local ministry partners who already have programs in place and know what's going on and know what works. There's always room for improvement. There's always something that you can do better. I really do. I think the books that came out helped short-term missions in general really rethink, are we helping? Are we doing the right thing? And I think it has been a boost, to short-term missions in general.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about like short-term missions have been around in some capacity since Paul, but it wasn't too long after that people started going to locations in the name of Christ and like things like the Crusades or colonialism and like going into these areas and actually doing some really bad stuff. And I think that, in this podcast, we're talking a lot about modern missions. And so when you think about, and I think you were touching on this earlier, Michael, when you think about modern missions of today, really what we're seeing today really started somewhere in between the 60s and the 90s, where middle class Americans actually have the ability to go and travel to different countries for a week at a time. Because before we had people sailing for days and days or months to get somewhere and share the gospel with people, and that looked a lot different. And so, what kind of contributing factor do you think that middle class Americans, Joe Schmo, having the ability to go on a mission trip and fly somewhere and afford that, whereas like in the early 1900s, that wasn't a possibility? How do you think that's affected how missions look today?
I think it has definitely helped more people become aware of things outside of their personal circle, right?
Mm.
I talk a lot about when you have knowledge of something, it means you've actually experienced it firsthand. I think that is key to actually having knowledge of something, is experiencing it yourself. You can watch a show about Guatemala. You can hear someone talk about going down and doing something, but until you do it yourself, there's a disconnect. And so giving the ability to the entire church, right, the entire American church, to go and experience and gain firsthand knowledge of what it's like for others living throughout the world, really helps us be able to think past our immediate circle. So that's one really big benefit, is that it forces everyday people to realize that, like, oh yeah, I am privileged. Oh yeah, I should probably be doing more to help others, even just help others right here in my own backyard. That's something we get comments about all the time, is the people saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was able to do all this good stuff here. I want to go home and do it. We had this one church I can remember. They went with us year after year after year down to Mexico, and they served. And then finally, they stopped coming with us, and we were like, "Well, why have you?" And it's because they had started doing their own missions right in their backyard.
Well,
So, number one, helping people see past themselves and their personal bubble. But then, two, like, as we become this more globally connected body of Christ, we are able to help people that we would never have come across in the past. Back in the old mile, yeah, like if someone didn't come to your church and tell you about this one thing, you wouldn't know, and they wouldn't be able to receive help. So the fact that now, if someone needs a procedure down in Guatemala, and they can just email back to this church that had been down there and met this person and say like, hey, we have this need. There's access to more avenues of help for everybody. So that's something else that I think that's a real big benefit.
I think something you were touching on there a little bit is a theme that's in the popular book When Helping Hurts. And you were talking about poverty in two different ways in that situation, because you're talking about the poverty of the people that were going to visit, people who can't afford surgeries, people who can't afford homes in Mexico. But then you also pointed out the poverty that a lot of middle class white Americans have over here. And that is a lack of understanding spiritually of what our brothers and sisters are going through.
Yeah, they do talk about how, like, really modern missions are just as much for the people going as it is for the people there, right? We're not going with this kind of savior mentality that like, oh, they need us and they need our help. We really are going for a multitude of reasons. And I think really right there at the forefront is recognizing that we are just as broken. We are just as in need of, say, a savior. We are just as in need of another connection to God, another connection to what Jesus is doing. I would say that's one of the best things that can happen on a mission trip is, yeah, you may be going down with this kind of idea of like what it's going to look like and how much you're going to help. But then, so often we see people, it finally click that like, oh my gosh, I'm being served too. I needed this just as much as the people I thought I was going there to help.
That's good. I think another big piece of a little bit of the controversy is the large amount of money that we as American Christians are spending on short-term missions, because you mentioned like we benefit from it so much, and it's not always directly helping the people, but sometimes helping us too. And so it's like, couldn't we just send people this money? I mean, when I looked online, it says that Americans are spending 1.5 to $2 billion on short-term missions every year. So can you talk a little bit about that, and like, why are we not just sending the money for these people to get food, to have housing, all the things that they're requesting from us?
You're asking all the best questions. These are all like my ranty things that I can just go on rants about. Money is always a question. It's always a question about like, well, couldn't we just send the money down? And the short answer is, yeah, we could. We could just send the money down. But again, I think one thing goes back to that knowledge, right? Personal knowledge. If you're just sending money, you're probably not going to have the same connection as if you did go down. The other thing that we like to point to is the economy of God. Jesus's economy doesn't work like ours does. So we want to look at how much was spent and what the product was, and kind of be able to like have a balance sheet and say like, okay, this is the money we spent, and this is the help that it gave, and the help is greater than what was spent, and so that equals okay. Jesus's economy was never like that. Mm-hmm. Jesus's economy is always about really just kind of upside down economics, right? The widow's mite. Jesus pointing to the widow, saying like, she has given more into God's kingdom than all of these people with their tons of money that they spent.
I was just going to say, I'm thinking also the story of Mary with the oil and pouring it on Jesus's feet. And then the apostles are like, hey, couldn't we use this to like feed the poor? Why are you using this expensive oil to do this? Couldn't it be better used to purchase food for these people?
You have these people saying like, well, Jesus, I can't believe this is so much money that she just wasted. And that is a common argument, right? Mm-hmm. With missions is, you're wasting this money. Well, we don't know. We really don't know. And honestly, you see it time and time again where lives are changed. You can't put a value on that, right? You can't put a value on the kid who goes down, experiences something on this mission trip, and then comes home and wants to change the trajectory of their life to serve God. While I am a big fan of being financially responsible and making sure that we're making good decisions about how we use money, I will always argue for missions, in that we just don't know if it's a waste of money, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, if you really want to start nitpicking, like the church wastes a lot of money just in general. Mm-hmm. And so, no, I don't think short-term missions is a waste of money. And again, I think like I said before, there's always room for improvement. I do know that in terms of what we are doing with Mission Discovery, we are very focused on building up our ministry partners and empowering them.
I am really proud of our efforts here at Mission Discovery and the persistence we have in pursuing the desires of our ministry partners' hearts. Like, we're not coming in here like, oh, this is what we should do, but we're going and we're saying, hey, like, what's a good next step for this ministry? And I mean, we're working alongside ministry partners for multiple decades. I mean, 30 years in the grand scheme of Christianity, that's not that long of a time. But in the scheme of short-term missions and how long it's been around in this capacity of modern short-term missions, 30 years is a long time. And a project that I'm specifically really proud of right now that we're beginning is Chopping Serve. And so I think that's a great example of how we can empower our ministry partners instead of coming in with this hero mindset. So in case you haven't heard of it, for decades we've been going to Guatemala and we've been helping people there to get homes, because a lot of people there are sleeping on dirt floors and bad living conditions. And so we've been taking groups of American volunteers down to Guatemala and helping them build homes. But this past year, we've started this program called Chopping Serve, where we're empowering the local Guatemalans to get together and build their own mission teams and then serve their local community and build homes for the people around in a way that is sustainable to that community. And so I would say that's an example of what long-term sustainable short-term mission work turns into, because we've developed this partnership year after year, and now we're saying, hey, it's not just us that can do this, like we want to help you guys to do this too.
Yeah. That's really well said.
Okay, so we've covered short-term mission trips are expensive. That's a hot controversial topic. Another one that people like to bring up a lot is the safety of short-term mission trips. So can you fill us in a little bit on what that's all about and what's in the news about that? And
At least, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year, we will get a call or an email from a group. And what'll happen is this group leader will be like, yeah, we're going to go to Guatemala. And then they'll announce it. And then it's usually like a parent or somebody they'll go on to. And this, like, we check this too, but the State Department, the U.S. State Department has a website where you can go and you can actually search for any country, and they give I think it's a 1 to 4 rating of travel safety. So like 1 being like, it's fine, you can go, it's great, up to 4 being like, don't go there at all costs, do not go there. So there are some pretty easy, like, yes, like North Korea is out of 4. It's very unsafe to go to North Korea. I think probably Iraq is on there. Some of those countries where it's just like, yeah, level 4. But then right under level 4 is this level 3 where it's like, you probably should travel there. And then underneath that, level 2 is like, proceed with caution. But the problem is it goes from 1, which is like, everything's fine, to 2, which is like, oh, it could be, to like 3, feel like if you're right below North Korea, it feels, I really shouldn't be traveling here. But routinely, Guatemala, Jamaica, which is a honeymoon destination, a cruise destination. Jamaica is listed at a level 3 pretty consistently. Guatemala's on there as a level 3. We'll have these parents or group leaders who like go on this site and they'll see like, oh, we're traveling to a level 3 classified travel warning country. And so then they'll call us and be like, hey, it feels like it's very unsafe to travel to this place. Should we be concerned? And so about 4 times a year, I am answering this question. But first of all, I would say safety is very, very important to mission discovery. We are keeping track of news, of local news. We're always checking in with our mission partners to make sure that conditions are okay. There are definitely locations where we pulled back from or don't no longer travel to because of how unsafe it is in those locations. I don't think we've taken a group to Haiti in like over 8 years because of how unsafe it is just for a team to go. There are still plenty of teams from other organizations that travel to Haiti, but we feel like that's not a risk we want to take.
Yeah, because as an organization, Mission Discovery is working a lot of times with high school groups or younger people, and so I think our boundaries are a little bit different than other organizations can handle. But going back also to that sustainability and that long-term impact that we were talking about earlier, we haven't just dropped Haiti either. We are working in Haiti. We're working alongside our partners. We are having calls with them all the time and still contributing to the work that they're doing. It's just like, hey, it's not safe for us to bring these groups of Americans over there right now. So we're going to support you in a little bit of a different capacity.
So number 1, safety's key for us. But number 2, all travel has some risk, right? Like even going to the store carries some risk. Now there are, going to the store is not the same risk level as traveling to a different country, but to just assume that because the country you're traveling to doesn't have a level 2 or a level 3 risk rating means that it's completely safe. That you always have to use context. And then
random fact I wanted to stick in there is, I don't know how relevant this is, but I've always heard this, that more than half of car accidents that result in serious injury or death happen within 25 miles of home.
Yeah.
So you're just saying, something can happen anywhere, but it really.
I mean, yeah. The funny thing about that fact, which I think I've heard it too, is statistics, right? Because statistically, you're most likely going to be driving within 25 miles of your home the majority of the time that you're around, unless you're like a traveling salesman. You're most likely going to be around 25 miles of your home. So the statistics are going to prove that out. But the problem with labeling an entire country with one number is that if the US were given a number on the travel scale, we would most likely be at a 3, right? Because if you're taking into account some locations, especially like in big cities where you have a lot more crime or things like that, the danger level is not the same, right? So if I'm going into like a big city that has a lot of crime, or if I'm like driving in my neighborhood, to rate both of those places with the same number, it just doesn't work. And so when you see a number on like Guatemala, that is Guatemala is a travel level 3 warning, that could be true for Guatemala City, but we fly into Guatemala City and then we drive to a completely different part of the country that's like 2.5, 3 hours away. So we're not even near the area that has flagged Guatemala as a level 3 risk. That's what I try to tell people is like, okay, yes, there is activity. Yes, there is a reason that a country like Guatemala has gained that travel warning, but we're not going to be near that activity. We're going to be completely away from that. And so realizing that we prioritize safety, there's always risk in traveling, and that contextually what is causing that rating could be completely separate from where we're working and things like that. It gives more nuance to just saying like, well, international travel is scary and dangerous.
I mean, we've talked about how, when helping hurts, that concept. We've talked about the whole money issue, how much is going to short-term missions. We've talked about safety. There are a lot of ideals to overcome to be able to acknowledge the benefits of short-term missions. And so, as someone who is passionate about short-term missions, why keep trying? Why persist in the idea of short-term missions? Why is it important?
Man, we're like hitting some really good questions.
It's the first episode.
We got to hit it hard, right?
Yeah.
I would say that Jesus is asked, what's the greatest commandment? The answer given is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And then the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two hangs everything, right? Straight from the source, Jesus says, the most important thing is to love God and also to love your neighbor as yourself. I think about those two things when I think about what missions really is. Missions isn't necessarily about coming in and saving a life. God's already at work. He doesn't need us. What God wants. What?
I said that's a word. That's facts.
God is at work. He doesn't need us. What we are being called to do, what missions really, I think, what missions really is about, is fulfilling those two commandments of loving God with everything we have. So with our time, with our money, loving God with our attention, right? So often when we're just in our day-to-day lives, we don't have time for God. We don't give him attention. Short-term missions is a way to kind of break that up, to give him our attention, give him our time, to commit to this. On a mission trip, you are able to love God, but then also to love your neighbor as yourself. Missions is a way to realize who our neighbor is, which is whoever you encounter. Why should we continue on missions? It's because we're called to do it. It's because God has said, like, this is the one thing that you have to do. Get to know me, all of me, get to know who I am, and then also go and do likewise. Love and get to know others. Missions is a focused boot camp for how to do that. And the hope is that if you go and you do it on a mission field and you're changed, you'll come home and you'll do it better at home.
That was really well said, Michael.
Thank you.
I think really what we're wanting you guys to get from this overall is that we don't want you to be so afraid of doing the wrong thing, so afraid of what's out there in the world, or so afraid of using resources in the wrong way that you just end up not doing anything at all. And so that's kind of where we're at in this very first episode of Field Notes. But it doesn't end here. We got a lot of good stuff to come. This is just the beginning.
It's gonna get good. This one was good, but it's gonna get better.
Yes.
I know we're gonna have guests come on. We're gonna interview some people, and the beauty of our work with Mission Discovery is we get to meet some amazing people, and so I'm really excited to bring some of those people on, have them talk about why they're passionate about missions.
And Michael's got some pretty crazy stories from the mission field. So
I guess from time to time we can have, like Michael's story corner where I talk about getting my tires slashed or something like that.
Yeah, that's a teaser right there.
Hailey, what's one thing you're getting into right now? Like, what's one thing that's, whether it's a book or music or something culturally that is just lighting a fire in you right now?
Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Okay, I need to hear about this.
So have you heard of the new Netflix documentary?
I don't know if my algorithm has popped that one up yet.
Okay, well, you gotta tell your algorithm to get with it because you need some Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders in your life.
Okay.
And I just want to say, the coaches are a little terrible to the women who are on that show. Okay. But I heard about this show because there's a girl on it whose name is Reese, and she's a Christian.
Okay.
And she is living out her mission in this secular workplace.
Do you think we could get Reese on here?
You're
like, the wheels are turning in your brain. You're like, how can I get Reese on our dumb little podcast?
I really do want to be best friends with her. So I mean, yeah. But anytime they ask Reese a question, she's like, well, I'm here because of Jesus. And it's like, and she's being such a light in such a secular workplace. And so I've enjoyed watching that.
Maybe wait a few weeks until we kind of get the bugs out. But we should definitely reach out to her.
Yeah. So stay tuned, guys, because Reese from Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders will be on.
That's awesome. Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Yeah.
I love that.
You got one for us?
I would say probably number one is Silo. There's a show. It's on Apple called Silo. It's pretty great. Post-apocalyptic world. People are living in these like giant silos underground. And it's not safe to go outside. But then there's like no one's been outside for so long that people are starting to like wonder, is it safe? Could we go outside? Do we stay in? And so there's this whole like network of people trying to like keep the population happy and not questioning things. And it's very tense. I mean it's a good show. All right, well, I think that's it.
Thank you for listening to Field Notes, a podcast by Mission Discovery. For more information about who we are and how you can get involved, visit our website at missiondiscovery.org.